Okay, I'm here. Somebody's watching. Hello. Welcome in. I decided to do a pre-stream sign to rather than just abruptly start. I'll have to hang on to this. Uh, Last week I had some problems with the sound, so since I've got somebody right away at the start, can you hear me? I'm not coming through like I'm behind a door. Great. Uh, that's all. That's all I need. I've I've picked out a headset and microphone that Best Buy said they had in stock yesterday, but ended up being an inventory error and they were sold out. So I don't have the thing that I purchased from them. They're sending it to me. Joy. Which means I don't yet have a better sound system. I'm still just hooked up to the auto thing. Um, I've got fair amount to go through and no real recipe to follow. I'm just gonna plug through this step by step. But since there is actually quite a bit of work involved here, I am going to have to get cooking. So, for starters, I have a reference recipe that's just a basic guideline. Okay. First things first. Get the oven ready. Hop us over to the countertop. I need some. There's a million ingredients to this thing. So, first things first, it's got to have a blind bake crust that needs to be cooled before anything can be put into it. So, we need to start first off with our crust. And like most good things, the crust starts with a great deal of butter. That I need to melt up, but I need to melt it up immediately. I need to cut it. When melting butter, it will melt more evenly and not pop so much if you break it up into smaller bits. So we're turning it into little cubes of butter before I throw it in the microwave. The microwave's in the other room around the corner. So, and I've not yet attempted to use the microwave while I'm live. We will find out together if it interrupts the signal, since I'm, because of distance, necessarily on Wi-Fi in the kitchen. So, um, if the stream suddenly cuts out, you'll know. It's the microwave. Oh, sticky butter. But we will do that immediately. I will be back in a second. Okay. How are we doing? Can we still see me? Looks like everything's still moving, so that's good news. Now, when I made the sweet cheesecake, it was a graham cracker crust. Oh, you may have noticed, as thing just beeped. As a slight diversion, you may notice I'm wearing an apron, which I just got today for my birthday. So I won't have gross little oil spots all over my clothes anymore. It's fancy. It's even got a little pocket right up here where I can put a knife pointed at my face so when I trip and fall, it stabs me in the throat. Maybe don't do that. Maybe don't do that. Go check on my butter. Okay. So before I interrupted myself, what I was saying was when I made a sweet cheesecake, it was a crushed graham cracker crust. This is a savory cheesecake, so I'm using Italian breadcrumbs, pre-seasoned, because why not? In the same quantity, which is going to be most of this little jar. Cup and a half. Yeah, that's most of one of these little tubes. Gee, thanks. Who? I got. Somebody gave me this apron. Who could that have been? Welcome in. I'm just melting butter in the other room. Mostly melted butter. Uh, Need a larger bowl than the one I got out. That should be about right. Move my veggies over to the side. Stir my butter together. Get those solid bits melted into it. I've found that you can melt butter all the way just by microwaving it into oblivion, but it tends to start to pop and explode. It's better to leave it a little bit chunky and then stir it together, and as the heat evens out, it'll turn it nice and smooth. So a cup and a half of breadcrumb, 5 tablespoons of butter, small spatula, so this recipe, if it works, I'll write it down. If it doesn't work, you'll all have seen my failure live, and we will all forget about it together. Now, my recently washed hands in there. Combine this, as they say, into the consistency of wet sand. lumps in there. You can smell the herbs, and I think they put Romano cheese in here. Yeah. So this is gonna be interesting. We already don't smell like a cheesecake. We already smell very much something different. Let me rinse my hands off. Now I have the correct device. I didn't get it out in advance because I'm a fool. But we have our spring form, into which we construct the crust. Just heard the oven click, so that's a good sign. Yes, the sound effects of being immediately adjacent, like literally right, not even a foot to the side of where the microphone is where all the pots and pans are kept. So nice loud clattering. Now what did I use last time? I can't remember what I used last time to. Was it this? I think it was this. I bought this tiny frying pan. Recipes for cheesecake say get a measuring cup and press in the bottom of the thing with a measuring cup. Well, I only have these plastic measuring cups with this weird divot, which means I can't get a nice round edge. But I've got a steel bottom, or a steel tiny frying pan, which is pretty similar. Ugh. Get it even. I'll make sure I don't make the bottom too thin either. The idea here being that this will, baked just by itself in the oven, hold into a nice crust upon which you can build the cheesecake. I can already tell you it's a little bit less sticky than when I did it with graham crackers. So we'll see. But the flat bottom and the straight edges of the thing here give me a nice flat surface, but also a nice even press. You just have to be careful not to punch through at all. There you go. It's a little uneven. There's some lumps that I'm not sure how to get rid of. Also a tiny bit uneven around the edge, but I'm not gonna futz with that. Hands are greasy. Okay. Now, the original basic cheesecake bakes this for 8 minutes. So I'm going to set myself a timer. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a standalone timer. I'll be back in a second. Rather than have the computer try to run the timer at the same time, we are going to have a separate timer device to timer me. Okay, so this guy goes in the oven blank. For 8 minutes. Oh, now I've got a couple other experimental elements I want to look at here. One of them is I can't really put in a normal pizza sauce because it'll make the crust soggy, and if I mix tomatoes into the cheese part, they'll be too watery. And also acid, I don't want to add too much acid or liquid to the cheesecake, the cheese part of it. So my idea is to put in a layer of tomato sauce on the bottom after I've blind baked. And then re-blind bake it a little bit to hold them together. Now I bought, set things to the side a bit. I bought canned tomato sauce. I'm going to get this so I can see it. Canned tomato sauce. But I've never bought canned tomato sauce before, so I don't know how thick it is. If it's too runny, I'm going to cut it with tomato paste. But we're going to find out right now. It's pretty runny. And this is a pre-seasoned tomato paste, which is an interesting idea. And tomato paste is very thick, but the cans are just a little bit awkwardly small. But tomato paste, in my experience at least, has a funny flavor that has to be cooked. I'll taste this one right now, just to see. Also, open your tomato pastes by pushing the tube through is always fun. So that's tomato paste. That's the consistency I was thinking of. That already tastes pretty much just like pizza sauce. That might be a tad too thick to get spread on the bottom without damaging my crust. So, and all this part we have to do now, early, ahead of time, because the crust needs to be cooled before I can add the cheese mixture to it. So, I'm gonna hit this with a, oops. I'm gonna splatter little bits of tomato all over the place. First, I'm gonna hit this with a whisk and a little bit of a runnier one, just to loosen it up. That's just about the consistency I was looking for. It holds. If this was whipped cream, I would say firm peaks or stiff peaks. This is, well, I mean, Tiny Whisk is this kind of whisk. So, Tiny Whisk's dad is this whisk. This is more like Tiny Whisk's estranged uncle. Tiny Whisk lives in the drawer right below the camera here, along with Blue Whisk. Not quite so tiny a whisk. This whisk I picked up from Goodwill, and it was broken. The whisk part inserts into this handle tube, and the handle part, the hook on the back also does, and they were both coming off. But a little bit of Gorilla Glue in the ends there, and then a rubber band to hold it together, and it's quite a nice whisk. Really sturdy handle for vigorous whisking. And because it's got a wide handle, that's something I don't like about these wire whisks that are just a coiled wire, is that when they get down to the handle part, they don't, they either have to twist or crisscross or something in order to get into that wire handle. These big guys attach very evenly, which means that the bell of the whisk is also very even. And I really like that. So, I've also got Red Whisk who lives over here. Red Whisk is kind of flimsy and awful. I would say Red Whisk has had a hard life, but Red Whisk hasn't been used very much. Red Whisk was born this way. Poor Red Whisk. Anyways, this isn't going to really change much. I just need to get the sauce out of the whisk loops. As always, reducing a heap of dishes along the way as we go. That I'm going to have to deal with on my own time. Well, we're going to use more than one whisk today. Probably shouldn't have used the big chunky whisk for this, because I'm going to need to use a whisk for cheese later. Oop, I dribbled. Oop, I did a dribble. There's our timer. Oh, let's get that guy out of there. Ooh-wee. Gotta be honest, it smells a teeny bit burned. What is this paste seasoned with? The paste was seasoned with basil, garlic, and oregano. Also, spices, natural flavors, and sugar. And the tomato sauce, which I can't tip towards you now, has the same tag, basil, garlic, oregano. and also has red pepper. And interestingly, does not list spices. Um, a little bit of extra tomato sauce there, which would like, this extra tomato sauce would be like a good drizzle or a dip or something. So the crust needs to come to room temperature. I probably should move it off the stove entirely so it's not getting ambient heat. But I wanted to, let's see. This is a part that no one has ever done in any of the reference recipes I've looked at, is add the tomato paste. Let's go to the stove. Let's go to the stove and the oven still needs to be on because the cake is going to bake at the same temperature that we just did the crust at. I have the thing for this. I have the thing for this. I have an offset knife. Get it in there a little roughly first. And I don't want it to be too thick. Oh, okay. Uh, Things I've learned instantly. This crumb base is not firm. It's trying to lift up as I spread this stuff on it from the bottom. Probably should have cooled it a little bit more before I added the tomato, but now we're committed and I can't do anything about it. I could, you probably can't hear it. You're probably too far away. I could hear the crumb base shift just then. Well, yeah. So already I made a mistake. This should have been fully cooled to room temperature before I added the tomato. My idea was that I'm going, oh my god, okay. This is going to be a little bit of a mess. Why have I done this to myself? I feel like it's probably breaking because it's still too warm and the butter needs to sort of reset. But we're committed now. It could be the sugar. That's possible. Can't. Not really. Hello. Welcome in. I can't quite see your name from over here. But welcome in. I'm making an abomination. think, well, it's holding okay enough. But I feel like when I cut into it after it's done, which by the way won't be until tomorrow, we're not going to see an actual slice of this today. Sadly, it needs to rest, and given how much I'm punishing it, it especially needs to rest. For once in a while, I hear a little from the crumb base shifting. Okay, well, I'm going to set him off of the stovetop, just over here on the table that's just past where you can see, so that he's not getting any residual heat from the oven. Hopefully it will cool. But the tomato sauce might seal it off. Let's see, who came in? David Dearl. Hello. Welcome in. I'm making nonsense. The next, oh God, there's so many steps to what I'm thinking here. The next step is going to be chop up my vegetables. Because, of course, I'm not just making a simple pizza, I'm making a complicated pizza into a cheesecake. I want all the parts. I want a supreme, not just a pepperoni. We're going to cook off the peppers, onions, mushrooms, olives, sausage before it goes in, because I don't think it will cook through in the cheese mixture, because we're doing a water bath, so it's oh my God, get the seeds out of there. Seeds. So, and I've got my homegrown oregano and basil that I'm going to mix in with the cheese as well for more of that spice flavor. Pepper. I mean, maybe. We don't know what's in theory extra moisture will kill the cheesecake, but there's so many experimental elements to this that it may have already been ruined before I even started. We will be finding out together. I'll be able to pull it out today. Can't see the cutting. Oh, shoot, I forgot to change the angle. It's a problem with having the angles. I started cutting the green pepper. We got about halfway through it. Based on the size of our thing, I think we want another chunk of it, but not the whole thing. Gotta remember to always switch my angle when I move. This is why it's nice to have people live. They can tell me when I'm messing stuff up. I'm going to do equal parts peppers, onions, probably not as much of the mushroom or olive. I'm just trying to think of how your typical like pizza with everything goes. This was one of the first ideas I had that I thought I should do this just off the cuff and see what happens. Green pepper. Uh, so here we are, off the cuff, seeing what happens. I figured my birthday was a good day for it, because what else am I going to do? Probably only need half that onion. And as always, I am not going to do the correct method of cutting an onion. We'll do it as wrong as we possibly can. That's pretty wrong. I'm doing just about as bad a job as I can think of with this onion. Oop, well, it kind of comes apart at the end there. I hope I like irregular chunks of onion. I do like irregular chunks of onion, so I just need to make sure they're small enough that when I mix them in, they don't sink. That's the issue with my piece sizes here. That's about the same amount as the green pepper. Okay. And some mushrooms, because I also like me some mushrooms. Mushrooms shrink up quite a lot, so I'm not going to dice them quite as small, but we are still going to dice them up a fair bit. Mushrooms also don't weigh a lot, so I'm less concerned about them becoming too heavy and sinking in. They do have a lot of moisture in them, so I'm going to definitely have to cook them down to try to get the moisture out of them before I mix them in. So the full list here for our toppings is green peppers, mushrooms, onions, black olives, Italian sausage, pepperoni, I'm not going to be putting fresh garlic in. I've got garlic powder and onion powder, or onion dehydrated granules. Ew. Also, choosing not to wash my mushrooms, I will just make do with the little bits of soil that are on them. Okay. Green peppers, onions, mushrooms. Sweet Italian sausage, for which I always think this should be brighter. Brighter. We're gonna fry up the sausage. I'm gonna do the whole package of sausage here, but probably not gonna use the whole thing. We'll save the extras. Olive oil's over here. I'm gonna put just a dab of olive oil to start it off. I would switch you over to the stove, but all it's doing right now is warming. So I'm gonna open canned black olives, because that's the kind that I put on pizza. They're already pre-sliced. They come in this juice that I'm going to drain in the sink. And here they are, the easiest to prep of all my ingredients. Olives. They're very juicy. I probably should put them in something where they can sit and drain a little bit. Okay, they're going to go sit on the sink and just sort of dry out a little bit, since they did come packed in juice. Now I want to get, so the mix-ins are going to be mixed in, and they need to be cool when they do that. So they have to be cooked off pretty much before I even think about the cheese part. I did just remember that I forgot to get my eggs out, so they're going to just get out and set up here at room temperature to try to warm up a little bit, because they're not supposed to be completely fridge cold. Let's head over to the stove again. Grab ourselves just a regular spatula is fine. There's a paper under there. Okay, well, I'm jumping the gun a little bit because that did not sizzle when I put it in. I'm impatient. That did not sizzle when I put it in. Touched the raw meat, so I will wash my hands. Whenever you touch the raw meat, make sure to wash your hands. There's the sizzle. Here's the sizzle starting. Okay. So I'm cooking the whole thing to start with. And then I'm going to separate it out and decide how much of it I want to actually use. And then I'm going to use the oil and the rendered fat from this to cook the vegetables so that I'm not adding too much extra to the finished product. The mushrooms will help soak some of it up. And I'm trying to maintain some kind of integrity. You know, I had a better spatula for this, and I used it one time, and the head snapped off. It was a silicone spatula that was thick and rigid, and the handle was so cheaply made that it just broke in half the instant I tried to use it for anything other than, like, pushing an egg around. And that was unfortunate because it was good for something like this, where you need to sort of break the bits up. But, oh well. I disagree. I think the grease from the meat is going to add flavor. The meat was pre-spiced, and I want everything to be flavorful. I'll drain it if there's too much grease, but I definitely am going to use the drippings in this pan to fry off all those vegetables. Trying to picture somebody coming in right now, looking at the title, cheesecake, and seeing a pan of meat being fried. I'm not hiding from. I don't want to hide from any of this. I want all of these flavors. We're not making a cheesecake that you could imagine is flavored with pizza. We're going all in. Oh, the hand is a little bit stiff from the push, 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 push. Now I am taking advantage of, for the sauce, pre-sauced, or pre-seasoned sauce, and in the sausage, pre-seasoned sausage. Which is a bit of a cheat. Should be adding my own spices, doing my own blend. Since I think I have all of the spices that are in any of this stuff just over here on the spice rack that looks real pretty, but it's at such a bad angle that nobody's ever going to be able to see it on camera. The thing I wish I had is wooden handle silicone spatula so I could rest it on the edge of the pan without the hot pan melting right through the handle and breaking my spatula. That's happened to me too. I had a nice one, and I would rest it on the edge a lot, and it just, the divot got worse and worse and worse, and it got these heat cracks. And then one day I was digging into something, and it just went snap. And that was the end of that spatula too. On the other hand, a wooden one, you run the risk of the wood getting soaked and expanding or splitting. So I suppose they all have trade-offs. Okay. All the pink bits are gone. Lost a few little nuggets on the side there. All the pink bits are gone. So I'm going to get a bowl ready for when I transfer this out of this pan. There's definitely way more sausage there than I intend to use for this concoction. So I will have to come up with a secondary plan for it. Exactly one of the viewers right now knows that I'm already coming up with a something to do while the cheesecake is in the oven. And it's going to be in there for over an hour, and it's not going to be ready to eat until tomorrow. So I have to also make my dinner. And I have a plan for that that does not include this sausage. So the extra sausage will just have to be packed away. I could order actual pizza, but I'm going to make more food. I'm going to continue cooking a completely different, unrelated dish to treat myself. For lunch, I had a BLT, but I didn't have any bread, so I went out and got bread. And this is the bread I got. A colossal loaf of French bread, which is also not going to be part of my dinner this evening. I got the colossal loaf of French bread because pre-sliced like white bread was 3 times the price for like a loaf half the size of this French bread, which is just insane. So I got the cheap French bread instead, which is also better bread. Sometimes I don't understand the pricing of things. Having made my own bread, your typical like white grocery store loaf costs them at most 50 cents to make. And then they have to pay somebody labor, so it costs a little bit more than that. But the markups they have are like $5 for a loaf of bread. Crazy. So we're cooking this sausage until I get some nice little crusty brown bits, because I want those nice little crusty brown bits to start forming on the edges. That's what I'm looking for. It's cooked through. I could eat it right now if I was planning on eating this. But I'm waiting for those hasty little crusty bits to start forming. While we're waiting on that, I'll clue you in on those of you who were here for the pre-show may have seen it peeking over the edge. But here we have ricotta cheese, which is standing in for cream cheese in this recipe. And oh boy, I've heard that this is a thing and that there are some slight tweaks you got to do to make it work. But I've never done it. It's going to be a fun twist. Okay, you probably, I don't think the camera resolution is quite good enough. I'm starting to see little crusty bits forming around the edges when I let it sit for a minute. So we'll do that. My whole kitchen actually is sloped slightly that way. So when I'm not holding the handle of my pan, I have to turn it that way so that the handle levels out the weight. Otherwise it sits cockeyed. It's just the best. My kitchen is sinking into the corner. The corner by the clown. The clown is weighing down the whole building in that corner. This is a good opportunity. Let's see how many bags I have. 1 bag. I have 2 bags. Got a few loose ingredients just sort of hanging out around here that are taking up space, and my space on the countertop is at a premium, so bagged green pepper in the fridge next to the bagged tomato. Bagged onion, although I have in the past put onions in the fridge unbagged, just bare, and as long as I use them by the next day, they're fine. They're still fine. They're so dense that they don't give up. They don't go wilty the way something. And our extra mushrooms are also going to be bagged. How's that meat looking over there, guys? Now that I'm not paying attention to it, is it all burned on the bottom yet? Mushrooms. Yes, of course. I can never have one thing. I can never have one challenge at a time. It's always got to be make it layered, difficult nonsense. Hey, there's our crusty brown bits. Ooh, those are looking really nice. Can you see the crusty brown bits? A little bit. I wish I could get rid of this shadow that's in the front right corner of my stove, because it's where I want to cook the most. It's the go-to burner, but it's also the one that has this weird shadow on it. Need like a light behind the camera there. Okay. I'm willing to say that that is sufficiently fried off. We're going to get it out of there into our steel bowl. One of the reasons it's nice to have a set of steel mixing bowls. I actually just got new steel mixing bowls on top of the ones I already had. I got a set of them. I think they were mislabeled because I got 4 of them for $1 at Goodwill. feel like they were supposed to be a little bit more than that, but such a good deal. Okay. Now, that guy is blazing hot. There's not that much oil left in there. Mushrooms go in first because it's hard to overcook a mushroom, and they also need to give up some of their moisture and soak up some of that oil. How's it taste? Let's find out. Get out a handy dandy little scoopy spoon. It's hot. Slightly crumbly. Quite a bit of fennel. It's okay. It's pretty average. I didn't go with spicy. Normally I think I would go with spicy, but for this application I went with something more even. So it's got the Italian flavors in it, but it's not got a bunch of hot peppers or anything. Ah, so I read a thing about mushrooms once, that they're nearly impossible to overcook. They just sort of shrink as you cook them instead of, eventually they'll start to go like really dried out, but you can recover them. They're really durable to keep cooking. So if you're adding mushrooms to something and you want them to be cooked, throw them in ahead and don't worry about them, and they'll pull through. Peppers and onions, on the other hand, can definitely be overcooked. And peppers, onions, and mushrooms all should be salted to help pull more of the moisture out of them as you're cooking them. I found that if you do that with mushrooms too hard, you end up with this pool because so much moisture just starts gushing out of the mushrooms because there's a lot of water in the mushroom. There's a lot of water in a mushroom. But the salt will also help with my flavoring here, since there's salt in the sausage, and there's going to be salt in the tomato sauce and crust part. But the main cheese thing, I'm not adding any extra. I keep gesturing over here as though you can see the cutting board. Gesture this one. I'm not adding any salt to the cheese component. All the salty flavors are going to come from the mix-ins. And then we're going to add some of our black olives that have had a chance to dry out just a smidge. But I also want them onions, that sounds like a thing that could exist and would probably be delicious. So this is going to cook, lost an onion there. This is going to cook until I'm reasonably satisfied that they are cooked through. Breadcrumb can go away. Do I need the cutting board for anything anymore? I don't think I need the cutting board for anything. So I'm going to move the cutting board. Now I've got the bulk of this thing is going to be made from ricotta, which I'm going to attempt to beat together the way you do with cream cheese. And it needs eggs to stabilize it, just like a regular cheesecake. And I also, while doing a little bit of research, found that a little bit of flour added also helps bind it because ricotta is a little less, especially this ricotta, doesn't have a lot of gums in it. Those brick cheese, those brick cream cheeses have a lot of gums and stabilizers in them, which is very beneficial when you're making a cheesecake. They don't put as much of that in ricotta. But this one actually has a little bit in there, so I'll take a look at it before I go adding heaps of stuff to it. The gums and stabilizers will help make it a more... The idea is I'm going to be beating air into it. When you make your cheesecake, you gotta beat it to get air mixed into it, which gives it sort of a lighter, fluffier texture, so it's not just a block of solid cheese. I like a block of solid cheese as much as the next guy, but that's not the goal in a cheesecake. Let's give a taster to these guys. Wow, they don't taste like much without the rest of it all mixed around them. I mean, I think they're done. You can turn the heat off, and you can get them out of the pan. It's just like everything else. They need to cool because they're going in. God, my phone is ringing. Who would call me? Oh, well, the phone instantly stopped ringing, so I know who was calling me. It was a robo-dialer that wasn't interested in me picking up. Because I was thinking, who would call me? Everyone that would call me is currently in chat watching me and could just chat at me. Okay. I'm wondering if I shouldn't spread the meat and the vegetables out on a sheet so that they can cool. I'm gonna do that. I've got a little sheet. I've got a small sheet. Since we're going for cool, surface area is important. So I'm going to get these guys on a sheet. And it'll also give me a chance to sort of eyeball the right amount of the meat. I'm not doing it in the corner where you guys are, because that burner is still blazing hot. When I put my hand over it, I can feel the blazing hotness. The curse of having an electric stove. They don't heat up right away and they don't cool down right away. What do you think? It's warm. Countertop. What do you think? Look like a pretty even mixture. Oh, paper towel pad. That's a good idea. Get some of that grease off of there. I do have. Oh, perfect. I will use the end of this roll of paper towel. But they're not that greasy. Based on how much is picking up. Well, this end was. This end was greasier. Still, not as greasy as they could be. Which is good. And they're already cool enough for me to put my hand on, so that's a good sign as well. All the sheet pan has gotten a little bit warm. So they're going to rest over here as well. And now we're going to do the fun part, the quote-unquote fun part. The part that might end up with a total disaster. Because at the moment, I've just got a bunch of fun ingredients that I could put together into a food item that is recognizable. But that's all about to change. I'm going to pull up my reference. 32 ounces, room temperature cheese. You can't see it. With a plastic safety seal, keeping me from getting at it. Now, having recently experimented with my own cheeses, I learned that ricotta is a cheese made from the whey left over after making another cheese, specifically mozzarella. So it's got a lot of the fats and proteins were already knocked out during the first run of cheese. So they acidify it. Look at that. It's firm enough to hold itself at 90 degrees. Firm enough to hold over the pan or over the bowl. That's a good sign for what I want to do with it. Where's my tasty spoon? My tasty spoon it's got that ricotta texture to it, but it's not. The curds are very, very small. It's definitely not. Ooh, it's good. It's not like a crumbly ricotta. It's very. It's almost like a paste. It's not smooth. But this container is 32 ounces of cheese. So we're putting the whole thing in here. It's been sitting here since we started. So it's already room temperature. Boy, don't it look tasty? And I decided to go with ricotta rather than cream cheese because I think the flavor will work a bit better with what I want to do with it. And I had heard or read that you can make cheesecake with ricotta, because that was one of my concerns. Was cream cheese is a very particular flavor, and there are things that work with it, but I don't know that these flavors would, and I'm more confident in ricotta working. But I was not sure if you could use any other kinds of cheeses. Now we're skipping the cup of granulated sugar because this is not sweet. And this came in 1 cup of. Now I used sour cream last time. The most traditional versions use heavy cream, but I am once again using sour cream. And what's it? 1 cup is 8 ounces, so that's a cup. This is an 8-ounce package, which is a cup, right? That looks the same. So I'm just going to dump the whole thing in there. So that was convenient. I found 2 packages that were exactly the right size for what I want to do with them. The cream, or in this case sour cream, ups the richness of the final mixture. It also helps soften. Now, the ricotta is noticeably less hard than that Philadelphia cream cheese I used last time. I tried putting that in the beaters right away, and it wouldn't even beat. I had to really go at it with a hand mixer, or with a hand spatula, to get it started before the beater mixture would even bite into it, not just throw it around in a circle. I should have not used this good whisk for the tomato sauce because I wanted to use it here, but I can clean it off pretty quickly. We're going to see what happens when I start to mix this together. You see, it already wants to go in the middle of the beater, or the whisk, rather than around the just mixed together. But it's coming together. Having these things sit out in advance and come to room temperature is a huge deal as well. This needs to, in theory, beat until it's smooth, for which I should probably use the electric. We're also going to be adding eggs to this. Let's see. Lemon juice was also in the basic recipe, and I have not been able to get a clear answer as to whether the lemon juice is an important component for making the cheese curdle and set properly, or if it's purely to give it that tangy flavor. Ooh. This is hard on the arm. The old beat by hand. How's our consistency? I think I'm getting air into it. It feels like it's getting a little bit taller. Well, I don't know if the egg's enough to make it set. Like, they put a bunch of... That one doesn't have any. The other one, they put carrageenan and xanthan, and actually, if it comes down to it, I could add some carrageenan. I've got some right here from previous experiments. But they add gums to these. Like if you buy a cheesecake mix, it's full of gums to make it set. They don't just rely on eggs. But in theory, yes, the eggs should be the thing that's primarily making it set. Starting some mix-ins with some dry herbs I'm going to put directly in here. Which we can crush up in plain view. Last summer I grew a whole bunch of basil. There it is. And I also grew my own oregano, which felt like more of a waste. But there that is as well. And I'm just going to crush it into a fine powder with my handy mortar and pestle. Get it started here. Now, here's a trick I discovered on my own. If you're trying to grind up something that's leafy in a mortar and pestle, it often has a hard time getting a grip on them. Add just a tiny pinch of salt. The salt will grind up with the mortar, but it'll give you a little bit of an abrasive in there that will help you turn the stuff into a finer powder. I managed to grind up a chili pepper into such a fine powder that I was pepper spraying myself because it started to like vaporize into an airborne dust. That was a problem. And I also managed to do this with a bay leaf by putting some salt in there, those are really tricky to get a hold of. They're almost plasticky. So I think that the salt, as you can see, it's becoming a very fine powder there. I think putting a little bit of salt in with your grinding spices is a great idea. Should I add anything else to this part? Basil, oregano. That's garlic powder. Since there's no garlic in anything but the tomato sauce part. These dried onion granules that I didn't even open yet. Because that's how often I use dried onion granules. I've got a little bit of fennel. There's fennel in the sausage. I'm not going to add more fennel because there's fennel in the sausage. Yeah, I was going to avoid spicy elements to this. So. I did finally get an electric spice grinder, but I still really like the hand grinder for most of my spice grinding needs. Okay, we will get our flavor powder mixed in evenly. Look at those green dots. This is how you can tell that it's a fancy food. Fancy food always has tiny green specks that you can't quite identify. That's what makes it fancy, the tiny green specks. Now, the question, do I add my solid mix-ins before or after the eggs? I am unclear. Oh, after? Okay, I'll take advice on that one because I'm unclear. We're gonna do the eggs one at a time because it always says do your eggs one at a time. So I'm doing my eggs one at a time. I have my favorite eggs. They're so nice that they come with little bits of chicken feathers attached to the sides. They're reasonably room temperature-y. Oh, they got a really thick oh, I got some shell in there. I suppose that's why you do them one at a time. They got a really thick membrane that is sometimes hard to get open. And for some reason, sometimes I crack an egg and it's like, bam, crack, one hand, done perfectly. Other times, I can't get the thing to separate and I just don't understand it. I'm going to use Tiny Whisk, everyone's favorite Tiny Whisk, to not beat the egg really well, but break up these yolks before I throw them in, just because I think it'll be easier to incorporate them. So, well, my concern about putting in the eggs in before is that I've been cautioned not to overwork the eggs. That it will result in a tough final mixture. But I also have concerns about my final mixture being not tough enough. So maybe overworking my eggs a little bit will help with that. And you're just supposed to mix them until you can't see them anymore. can't see that egg anymore, so we will move on to the next egg. And see, that one cracked pretty well, but then I couldn't get my finger into it. But no shell fragments for that one. Tiny whisk. Can you see this? You can still see that. Just put those eggs there. Move this up a little bit, then you can see it. Again, I'll break the yolk up a little bit before I throw it in there. Because I think it'll be easier to incorporate. I had been reading a bunch of recipes for cheesecake, and something I've discovered is that there's a lot of different ways to make a cheesecake. There's disagreements about what goes in them, what elements work. Even things like, should you add flour? Should you add acid? So, but there are also these really technical things. So it surprises me when there's so much variation in recipes for something that is so very technical that if you do it wrong, it just turns into a nothing. Okay. 3 eggs in the mix. I'm not fully washing my hands, I'm just rinsing egg off of them, which I probably should wash my hands in between, but eggs are okay. But we've got quite a volume of stuff here. I have to use my largest glass bowl for this. I don't like whisking or beating things in the steel bowls because the steel whisk abrades against the steel of the bowl. And I have rusted one through because I wore through the coating on the wires, and it got, apparently they were only coated in. This consistency is fairly similar to what I had when I just made it for realsies. My concern is it sturdy enough to hold these mix-ins? The mix-ins are cooled. The eggs can go away. Clear space, clear space. Put away little dishes and spoons and knives and stuff. Recycling tubs go over here. Tomato sauce. We're going to hang on to the tomato sauce. Okay. Mix-ins. Now I'm going to add them a bit at a time and stir them in, rather than dump them all in. Can you see the mix-ins? Yeah, you can see the mix-ins. Well, they rest on the top when I toss them in, So that's promising. Do they sink all the way to the bottom? No, they still float around. Okay. I guess when I pour it into the pan with the rest of it, we will see together if there is a big chunk that falls out the bottom from the ones that sank. It's looking pretty lumpy already, actually. Look at those lumps. I don't think I want to add the rest of that. I think that's enough for my mixture might not hold. Have another spatula. Do have another spatula. Like they stand up. I dig down to the bottom. There's not a big chunk of them sitting at the bottom. So that's a good sign. They're holding in the distribution within the mixture. What do you think? Should I add more? Like when I go through it, there's chunks in pretty much every bit of it. Uh, I'm going to add a little bit more, but not all the rest of it. Just that much more. Just that much more. God, I don't know. I don't know about this, guys. I don't know about this, guys. This is a thing. I've made a thing. I have made a thing. Okay, I've got another fun step to do. We're going to move our mixture camera left and pull out my roasting pan, upon which you can see the outline of a springform. Now, last time I had a really rough time jury rigging an aluminum foil because I did not get the big stuff. This time, I got the big stuff. Oh, shoot. The big stuff is hard to tear off of the roll. That's not the end of the world. I need to do this a smarter way than I'm doing it. We are double bagging our cheesecake for safety. Because we do not want a cheesy breakthrough. We do not want a soggy bottom. We do not want the water bath to get inside the bottom of our springform. And the last time I did this, I did it with small foil and just really, really tightly folded the middle seam until I was satisfied that it was watertight, because the small foil is not wide enough for this. And then we fold the sides down. And the other key element to this, so that's the thing. You can see I had a little bit of a break on my crust on the side down here. It's not quite, this crumb is not quite as sturdy as the regular kind. There's our water bath. We still need our water. Should have started this a little earlier. Electric kettle, because one of the key elements that makes this work is the water that goes in the water bath has to be boiling hot. If it's not boiling hot water, it will take all the heat from the oven, heating up the water, and your thing will not cook. It'll just go gross and soggy. So, electric kettle, and as a just-in-case measure, I'm also going to boil some extra water on the stovetop. Because I am not certain if the kettle has enough volume to fill this guy up. But we'll be putting the kettle water in here first, then putting it in the oven, and then topping it off with the stovetop water, because the kettle is really hard to maneuver inside the oven. But the pot has a handle that I can handle. So, our water is heating up. We're going to put the cheese in the cake. Gently. Gently. Because I'm worried about the crust disintegrating on me. Okay. The pan does get quite heavy if there's water in it, so I'm adding some of the water first. Uh, but yeah, just because the electric kettle is not meant to be poured with something directly above it, I don't want my hand to hit the top of the oven while I'm pouring. So I'm going to put part of the water in first, then finish it off in the oven. Oh boy. Now, the last thing I wanted to do to this, because I did mention earlier pepperoni. I bought pepperoni. This doesn't look much like a pizza, does it? No, this is crazy. No one would look at that and say, "Oh, it's a pizza." It's got to have red circles on top. What's a pizza without red circles on the top? So here are red circles on the top. It is going to go in for initially 50 minutes, and then I'm going to check it. Last time, when I made just a normal one, it was in there for pushing 70 minutes. So I'm expecting this one to be a while. Red circles make it look like a pizza. The last one. Okay, this will either make it completely fail or be a genius idea. There's a deep rumbling sound happening, which I don't know if its mic is picking up because the kettle's attempting to boil right right on top of my countertop. Um, yeah. We're gonna set our timer. Set our timer for 50 minutes. I've used most of my various mixing bowls in the process of this. Okay. The electric kettle has boiled. Pour carefully. We do not want the water getting on top of the thing. Okay. That fills it up about halfway. Which is not enough. Open our oven. I would switch to the stovetop view, but you can't see the oven door from the stovetop view anyway, so you're just going to have to imagine this part. It's heavy and awkward and hot. Okay, okay. And just at the right moment, my pan of water on the stove also boiled. So I can put more into there. It fills up our water bath. Turn that coil off. Push it into the middle. Close the door. And we pray. Okay, you can go. You could also, just a thought, leave the stream running and just walk away and not listen to it. We call that, or just not chat. We call that lurking. I've got a bunch of lurkers at the moment because I'm pretty much just talking to myself. Haha! Welcome in, Chemical. We just got the, I don't know how long you've been here, but we just got the nonsense in the oven. And I'm setting my timer for 50 minutes. And I'm not going to be able to eat this for my dinner tonight, so what I'm going to have to do now is make a separate dinner. And my separate dinner that I'm going to make, oh boy, I should clear a few of these bits and pieces, or at least condense stuff a bit, so that I'm not spread all over the world here. Let's see. Recycling that bowl. Get this guy over here. He just had water in him, so you can go right in the drying rack. Get the used stuff off of the stove top. We don't need that there anymore. Combine my leftover elements. Put you there. Put you there. This has flavored grease in it. Okay. Oh yeah, taxes. Well, I'm striving to keep my chatter levels at a rousing pace. So my plan for actual dinner tonight is, you may be familiar with surf and turf, and you may be familiar with Ron Swanson's Turf and Turf. Well, I'm gonna make the opposite. Surf and surf. You might be asking yourself, or asking me, what does that mean? Well, get out my various devices and tools here. Lobster and fugu is not exactly right, but closer than you might think. I have, and they're still frozen, so we're gonna thaw them cheat way. This guy. This is a shrimp tail. It is almost as big as my hand. One shrimp tail, as big as my hand. It's been in the fridge for most of the day, but it's still icy, so I'm going to put it in a cold water dish. If you've got, I don't know that I would do this with all meat, but it works with seafood. If you've got seafood that's frozen and you want to use it, put it in a dish of cold water, or if your sink stopper up your sink, fill that with cold water, and it'll thaw out pretty well. So we're going to put that to the side. He's going to start thawing. That's surf number one. Surf number two is swordfish steak. Because I wanted to treat myself. I feel bad about it because I've got a thing. If we switch back to main view, you can't make it out. It's a little blown out. This is my conversion chart for converting all various measurements. Right below it is my guide to best choices EDF fish. What is it? The Environmental Defense Fund Seafood Selector. It tells you which fish you shouldn't eat and which fish you should eat. And swordfish is smack dab in the middle on the do not eat this list. So I'm a bad person today, eating my swordfish. This is what a swordfish steak looks like. It's a nice looking steak. The guy at the meat counter, I don't think I want to eat that whole thing. That's a big chunk of fish. Oh, you can't see it. I switched. Here we go. Swordfish. A nice big piece of swordfish. It's it's big. It's probably bigger than I want to eat. But I don't really want to break it up, so I might just not eat all of it once I've prepared it. I am going to do a quick, I got out a plastic bag for it. I'm going to do a quick marinade. And then while that's marinating and the shrimp tail is thawing, I'm going to do my vegetable side. I picked up some broccoli. And I've got some, mostly I've got broccoli. Ugh. Where did I put that broccoli? Broccoli. So the side dish is going to be a broccoli. I've got a recipe for broccoli that I've been using. Broccoli can wait in the wings, but we're going to do a quick marinade for the swordfish. And I'm bad at marinades. As you can see the mercury, that's what this big dark streak is. It's poisonous heavy metals. That's how you know it's top quality swordfish. Poisonous heavy metals. I actually don't know what the dark streak is. Every piece of swordfish has it in the same place. So it's some part of the actual fish when it's swimming around, but I don't know what it is. But what goes into marinade? I know I want to put some rosemary in it, and I've got rosemary in my front window, so I will be stepping out for just a moment to cut some rosemary from my front window. Okay, I am returned. I have homegrown fresh rosemary, a couple of sprigs there. I'm gonna go ahead and ask Mr. Google for a swordfish marinade because I don't know what to put in it. Marinate swordfish. I know you don't have to marinate very long because it's fish, so it pulls in flavors much faster than like a piece of beef would. So you don't have to do a big long marinade or a dry brine or any of that stuff. Of course, the recipe I clicked on was New York Times, which won't let me look at it because the New York Times is a paywall for everything. Delightful. Which is why it's so nice that they have purchased everyone's favorite word game, Wordle, so that it can go hide behind that paywall with the rest of the New York Times. Soy sauce, olive oil, salt, pepper, white wine, garlic. Well, flood the internet with copies of it so that the New York Times can't have the thing that they have attempted to take from us all. Okay, big ol' hunk of swordfish. He's going in the bag first with the rosemary on the top of him. Wash the hands, although fish juices aren't as problematic as like poultry or pork juices or things like that. But good habit to wash your hands every time you touch uh, raw meats of any variety. And we'll get out. You can't see this because it's off the side here, but this guy has started to sink. You'll notice, which is a sign that he's thawing. Shrimp, I've discovered, floats when it's frozen and sinks when it's thawed, which is a neat trick. I assume it's just because there's enough water in the tissues to. I need a bigger bowl than that. I assume it's just because there's enough water in the tissues to cause it to act like an ice cube. So some olive oil, some garlic powder, some of those onion granules. Well, some things I've done in frozen, like scallops. They sink before they're thawed. Uh, so just looking at them sink isn't always 100%. Um, Lemon juice. But yes, in general, I think many meats will behave similarly. Lemon juice. I don't have real lemon juice. I just have fake lemon juice, which is, I hate this stuff because it's so hard to get out of the container. But I'm gonna grab a nail. brand new nail. I've already opened this and used it, and yet somehow the little plastic tip closes itself back off. Now that one said white wine, which I can provide. I've got my wine just behind the refrigerator here, out of sight. Oh, boy, I need a drink of water. Tiny whisk got used earlier, so we're going to use medium-sized blue whisk to get this combined. Salt and pepper. Well, I put soy sauce in it, so I don't think I need more salt. But I will add some freshly cracked black pepper. Black pepper is one of those things that I see the pre-ground pepper. I've had pre-ground pepper. Freshly ground pepper is just so much infinitely better than pre-ground pepper. And it's cheaper. So I'm not sure why the pre-ground stuff exists, except for, I suppose, people who physically can't twist a grinder. But it seems like a niche application to me. Marinade is going in there with the meat. You only need to be marinating for, I don't know, 15 minutes. All my dishes are, there's a trick you can do with something like this where you can sink it into a tub of water and it'll squeeze the air out for you. But all of my tall containers have recently been used in the process of this horrible abomination of a cheesecake. So I guess I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. The following is not kitchen safety approved. Do not do that at home, kids. I'm obligated to tell you. But we got the air out, so now the marinade can soak into the fish. It only needs to sit here for a brief little while. I'm going to let that just rest on the side there. Put my... No, I'm not going to put that oil because I'm going to use that on the broccoli. Okay, so the broccoli. This is a recipe I made just by throwing things together, which is how the best recipes are made. And it was so good. I made it alongside a piece of just like a steak. And it was so good that I filled up on the broccoli and only ate half the steak. So I'm going to try to recreate it. I didn't write it down because, of course, I didn't write it down. Because that would be too easy if I wrote it down. But it is a good amount of sesame oil. That was a main flavor in it. Black pepper, salt, a good generous pinch of salt, some olive oil, but not a ton of olive oil. Crushed red pepper. I've been very, very slowly working my way through this ancient tube of crushed red pepper from Lord knows when. Doesn't even have any nutrition info on it. It's so simple and ancient. Um, but there's quite a bit of crushed red pepper in the thing I made the other time. So this is going to be a spicy, it's spicy broccoli. There wasn't a ton going on. It just the flavors worked so well. What else was in it? Because then it's just like sautéed really quick. So the broccoli turns to that bright green broccoli. I just tossed some sesame seed in there, but it's not. Hmm. It's just such a simple thing. It was such a simple thing. I really wished I would have written down what I had done because it was so good at the end. So I think I'm going to leave that mix there. We're going to break down my broccoli chunk. Oop. We will. Swoop up the knife. As always, you should always be swooping up your knife before every use. Now I'm only going to use the florets for this. But fear not, I will not be wasting the stalk of this broccoli. These things are great. I mix them in with carrots. They cook about the same rate as carrots do. And they're good. They're really good mixed in with some carrots as like a vegetable. Or in a stir fry. They behave similarly there as well. Oh, yes. Only fresh ground black pepper. I know that. So for those of you unaware, well, I don't know. Should I, what do you think, book woman? Should I out your secret identity? Up to you. Not by name, just by relationship to me. If you're even still lurking. So just get these guys tossed around real well in their mixture here. Rinse my hand off. Okay. What's my timer looking like? I want to do things in such a way that I'm not stumbling over myself. I've been gradually collecting bits of cast iron cookware. I've got this grill pan that I barely use. I was thinking of trying to make waffles with this thing, which I've heard you can do. You can make waffles on one of these. And I want to try it. So that's a future idea, waffles. But I don't really want to have to scrub it down for the piece of fish. So I am going to, I think I'm going to just do it on the regular flat cast iron. if you're ever looking for a cast iron, keep an eye on your local thrift stores. I've found that people drop off old pieces of cast iron that they have not taken care of, so they've gone all rusty and the coating is cracked and flaking off in chunks. But it's perfectly good iron underneath all that, and you can just hit them with some oven cleaner, hit them with some steel wool, and start over from scratch. And it's surprisingly easy to bring them back to like new condition, which I've done with that one. That one was super rusty when I started. Let's see, I don't want a high smoke oil. Grapeseed is my oil of choice. For those of you who may have just joined us, the cheesecake that is promised in the title is in fact in the oven right now, becoming a pizza. And I am preparing, and because it won't be ready in time for dinner, I'm preparing myself dinner. Surf and surf with a side of spicy sesame broccoli. Put a dab of oil in. Well, not that one. Fry oil. That's extra virgin. I have two different olive oils, regular and extra virgin. So many things these days just be like, grab the extra virgin olive oil. But they do different things. You don't want to use them just for, you don't want to use extra virgin for everything because it burns at such a low temperature. And it's nice and tasty and flavorful, but if it burns, it becomes this weird, acrid, not good flavor. Let's see. Got a little knobby end of my broccoli that I'm going to actually literally put in the bag with the carrots. Boy, I've been doing a lot of chatter. I need a drink of water. Also, here's a fun secret that will be known only to the looks like 5 people who are still hanging around. I found a Switch at Best Buy for sale, and I went for it. And I also picked up a capture card. So I'm going to, not today because they're not hooked up and I don't have my headset, but I'm going to plug them in and we will potentially add some live game content to the channel here, which would be a good way to fill time for the recipes that have large periods of downtime that I don't have a good way to account for, which I have already bumped into a few times. So, for example, this evening's cheesecake, the fun, like, active making part here, and then it goes in the oven, and then I could transition, because we're currently streaming from my laptop, I can just pick up the laptop, walk over to the other room, plug in the capture device, without having to interrupt the stream. I can, and then I wouldn't have to fill time in the kitchen while waiting for that to cook. Because I don't know how many of you checked out my cheese making fiasco, and I think it might have just been Felix Wright. Um, there was an awful lot of standing, doing nothing, waiting for the cheese, for the milk to come up to the right temperatures for the next step of cheese making. Cheese making was educational, and the results were tasty, but damn, it seemed like it was such a boring thing to watch. This pot of white liquid that just gradually got warmer. When it finally turned to cheese, there was only one person watching. It was it wasn't exciting. The cheese was tasty at the end, but boy, it was not exciting to watch. But for things like that that have a lot of downtime in between, that'd be a nice transition. I was thinking that would be a nice transition. Um, and Best Buy had capture cards on sale. I was like, well, come on. When am I going to find a better opportunity than they're on sale? So, so that potentially in the future. I haven't picked up a game for it yet. That's another thing. Any suggestions for a first game? I heard there was a new Pokemon that just came out that everyone's been playing, and I couldn't find it on the shelf because it's sold out everywhere. Oh, why am I still on the countertop? Nothing's happening on the countertop. I'm chit-chatting a little bit because I'm just giving my swordfish a chance to get to know its marinade. And the shrimp is actually getting to the point where I think I could take the shell off. I'm not going to cook it in the, well, I don't know. I could cook it in the shell. Uh, there's enough delay on my screen that when I walk over to wash my hands, I can come back and see the back of my head washing my hands on my manager board. So that's fun. I get to see the terrible view of the back of my head. Um, Poll for the viewers. Switch back to my. I don't have a poll. Can I do a poll? Are polls a thing I can do? I don't know how to do a poll. Maybe I can't do a poll because I'm not official enough yet. Um, should I shell this guy or try to cook him in the shell? From past experience, he cooks real fast. I'm going to do it in the same pan that I do the swordfish in, but this is going to go in well after the swordfish, and it's going to cook really fast. The shell might actually slow that down and let me have a little more control, but you won't get that crispy edges from being right on the heat. So, that's the question. What do you think? Shell on, shell off? Shell on would be more like how a lobster is done. The shell is thick enough. It's not flimsy little tiny shells like small shrimps. The shell's thick enough that it acts like a shell. It'll be pretty easy to get a hold of either now or after I cook it. Um, I love cooking shellfish because they cook really fast and they're mighty tasty. They're easy to overcook. You gotta keep an eye on them, and they will go rubbery in shell. I was also leaning towards in shell mostly because I hadn't done it that way before, rather than because I think it's better. I don't know if it's better. I just haven't done it. Um, I think in shell will make for a nicer presentation. The shell should turn pink as well, because it's blue, but the blue part is because it's raw. The blue parts of the shell should turn pink once they're heated through. I should have been keeping track of how long the fish was in the marinade. Um, I have not done that. I'm going to start heating up both pans, though. The broccoli will go reasonably quick, but not super fast, and it'll also hold pretty well once it's out, so that will be okay. Broccoli is pretty durable. I should have done a dish. Well, no. If I want to do dishes on stream, I need to put a camera over there. Um, broccoli is a pretty robust vegetable. As long as you don't cook it until it starts to go gray, uh, it holds quite well. Since you can eat it raw, it's best to err on the side of undercooked. Now the swordfish cooks. I've cooked swordfish before. If you've ever had shark, swordfish cooks kind of like shark. If you've ever had tuna, tuna is a little bit less sturdy than swordfish. Swordfish is a very, very sturdy piece of meat. You can cook it a lot like you would cook a steak, but you do have to cook it through a bit more than a steak because there's some connective tissue in there that just needs a chance to break down a little bit, or it holds together in little strings. We're not going for flaky. Swordfish doesn't go flaky like a whitefish does. Um, so there's my dinner. There's my dinner in progress. I don't think I'm gonna eat that whole piece of swordfish either. It's such a large chunk. This also gives it a chance to go up to room temperature because, like steak, you don't want to cook it super cold. You want it to come up to a more of a reasonable ambient temperature. Get rid of bag. This isn't as big of a mess as I've had in the past from some of my escapades. Sometimes when I start cooking, this is just a catastrophe in here. Takes me as long to clean up as it did to make the mess in the first place. Here's something I should be doing. Let's see. Are you hot? No. Are you hot? That one's hot. Well, hot enough to start. Something I should be doing, though, is packing up the extra filling bits. Are you going to sizzle? No. No? Yes. A little bit. Okay. You. That's going to be my stirrings paddle for that. Hold down a container and start containing this stuff. We have 11 minutes until I need to peek at my cheesecake, but I'm very confident that it will not be done at 11 minutes. So It's just a peek. I guess it's just a peek to see how well the water's doing, because I entirely don't expect it to be ready to come out at 50 minutes. So if I need to add more water, I shouldn't need to add more water. There's a lot of water in there. Okay. That guy's there, that guy's there, that guy's in the fridge. Toss around our broccoli. Take us back to the stove top because the action is going to be over there now. Stove top focus. Oh. Momentary return to countertop focus. Witness the unbagging of the fish. Hasn't been in there very long, but there was a pretty strong flavors in the marinade with them. We're not throwing the rosemary in right away. I just realized that I was about to throw in a piece of meat into a cast iron pan without checking the temperature of the pan. That would be foolish. How are you doing, pan? Are we hot? The pan is hot. The pan is hot. Okay. Stove focus, because get the oil spread around. Sizzle. Okay. Now it should do like a steak does and release from the pan. I think the broccoli doesn't need any more heat added to it. We have some smoke in the room with me. We are going to get out a plate. And I do not have a proper cloche to contain my food items, but I do have an oversized steel bowl that fits over the top of my plate. Which keeps the food steamy and hot well past. Hey, how are you doing there, piece of fish? You're not releasing, but you've only been in there for a moment. The hope here is that the piece of fish will let go of the bottom of the pan like a piece of steak would, so that I can turn it. It can take a bit of punishment because it's a piece of it's very dense and meaty, like a piece of beef would be. But it's not impenetrable. It's not indestructible. I still need to take care of it. So if it doesn't release, I may have to go ahead and get underneath it with a spatula. Wipe down my countertop real quick. You know, I never put I never put a countertop inset on the stove. I should probably do that. Ooh, can you tell? You can. A little bright red. I assume blood or intramuscular fluid. Release. Hey, that released pretty good. Okay. The shrimp is coming out of his water bath. I am bad at not overcooking my meat, so I'm going to turn this. Ooh! Look at that boy! Wowzer! He's looking good. He's looking mighty fine. We're going to do the shrimp right next to him in the same pan. And I am going to make an executive decision. Since I'm the executive of this kitchen. I'm adding butter. I'm going to do a little butter base like you do with a piece of steak. Got a little bit of smoke in here. I hope my smoke alarm doesn't go off. No, I'm not adding any rosemary to that. We're doing a little butter based. Make the top of this guy look real curdy. Ooh, what did I tell you? Bright pink. I can already tell that the shell is in fact slowing down the rate of cooking on the shrimp, which is good. I can leave it in a little bit longer than the swordfish steak so that it can finish up. Swordfish has not, well, it's stuck a tiny bit. I'm peeking at the bottom. I'm going to say that needs to come off and rest. He's coming off and resting. The shrimp is going to finish himself up. Oh boy, okay. This is exciting, because that swordfish looks pretty good, and the shrimp is looking pretty good too. The split on the back, where they split the shell to pull out the shrimp's poop line, lets me peek inside and see how well the doneness of the interior is. My alarm is going off for my cheesecake. Good timing. Let's take a peek. Whoa, okay, it's not ready. It's definitely not ready, but I don't know how I can get a view of that. It's dark in there. It's doing something. It's definitely doing something. It's cracked. It's 100% cracked, but it's cracked in circles around each piece of pepperoni that I put on top of it. And the pieces of pepperoni have not sunk. So, it's looking very promising. And I'm excited that it seems to be working. Oh, I'm going to pour myself a glass of hidden behind the pour myself a glass of white grape juice here. The shell has slowed that down enough that I bet I could have put that in at the same time as the swordfish and not overcooked it. Although the swordfish needs to rest a bit anyways, because like a steak, you want to let it rest a bit before diving in on it. Well, I'm calling the shrimp done. Calling the shrimp done. I'm moving the cast iron off of the hot burner so it has a chance to become less hot. I'm bringing the plate of food over to the main camera. Fancy. We'll grind the freshly ground on top of there. I mean, that looks like something I could order in a restaurant. To me, other than this one little bump. While it is still glistening, I'm gonna go take a picture of it. I will be back in just a momento because my camera spot camera spot is right around the corner of the other room. And we're back. Oh no! I was buffering there for a sec. I appear to be buffering more than a little bit. Um, huh. Yeah, the overlay is popping up and telling me, are you buffering? I don't know what's all of a sudden. All of a sudden, I don't know how to, I'm dropping uh, I'm dropping 20 frames a second on OBS. Okay. Well, I don't know where that came from. I'm still dropping frames, just not in giant chunks that was causing the stream to seize up. Um, anyways, you were asking me what Swordfish is like. Well, let's find out. I just dropped another couple hundred frames there. Yeah, it could be. I share my internet with my upstairs neighbor. So, what? Okay. Twitch is telling me that my network connection is unstable. So, Twitch has decided that this is a problem and it's not getting better. What does that sound? Um, so there's definitely delays on the stream at the moment. You were asking me what is Swordfish like? Swordfish is it's very firm. It's very meat-like. It's almost like a piece of pork. Like you can see, it's not flaking apart at all. It's really held together. There's a little bit of pink in the middle, not a ton. It's quite lean, good flavor. Um, The taste is like it's somewhere between tuna and pork. Have you ever had yellowtail? It's similar to yellowtail. Um, my OBS has says that the connection is cleared up and I've stopped hemorrhaging frames, so this should clear up. In theory, this should be clearing up now. And if you're behind, which I suppose you might be at this point, doing a quick refresh would catch you up to where I am now. Um, because handily. Oh, but Twitch is saying my bitrate is low. What are we doing? That's not that bad. Based on the lag time in Kobayashi's responses there, I suspect you may be behind by a bit. Um, but yeah, swordfish is it's an interesting meat. It's solid, it's robust. It doesn't taste much like fish at all. I haven't dropped any frames in the past 10 minutes or several minutes now. Twitch still thinks it's wrong, but OBS says everything's fine. And I trust OBS more than I trust Twitch. Um, Swordfish is not the cheapest thing, and also it's high in mercury and is on the poor fishing practices list. So I can't recommend it as a go-to. Like, go out and grab a bunch of swordfish. But for an every once in a while treat, it's a it's a nice piece of meat, and you can treat it very much like a steak. This guy, this guy, I did nothing to. Yeah, I don't know what caused the lag spike. All I can think of is the fact that. Oh, my alarm's going off again. Well, that's looking better in there. I'm gonna let that bruddle while I talk about my thing here. Um, all I can think about with the lag spike is that my upstairs neighbor downloaded something or put on. If we put on a show, I would imagine it would be still lagging. But we split the internet, so we both draw from it. But neither of us are really heavy users. This is the heaviest use that our internet ever gets. Is me trying to wrangle a live stream. The cheesecake just beeped at me. It's getting quite close to a situation where I would like to take it out. So I'm going to stall and talk about my dinner long enough that we can get over to that and pull it out and have people see it. And then it has to it has to rest for ages. It has to come to room temperature really gently, and then it has to sit in the fridge overnight. So it's we're not going to cut it until tomorrow. I'll cut it on my own and post pictures of the finished product, because I know everyone's going to want to see them. But I'm not going to get to taste it tonight. So I'm just going to talk about my dinner here for a little bit longer. Now this broccoli is it's not right. I did it once. This is similar, but it's a little bit too salty and a little bit too oily. And it doesn't have that, like, just keep eating it flavor. I gotta figure out what I did because it was so good. And the shrimp here, I did. Now, in the store, you'll see shrimp sold by count. Like a bag of frozen shrimp will have numbers on it. And what it is it's the number of shrimp that makes up a pound of shrimp at that size. This shrimp is a 3 to 4, which is almost the highest. The highest I've ever seen is a 1 to 2, which is a one shrimp tail is a pound. They're enormous. They're also pretty much as expensive as lobster. This guy was a 3 to 4. Three of these made a like I bought three of them, and they were or was it 4 to 6? I think it was 4 to 6. I bought three of them, and three of them together came to half a pound. So that's a lot. That's a big shrimp. Um, when shrimps get this big, they're very sturdy as well. As you can see, I can cut through it with a steak knife. But they still cook quite quickly. The very first time I tried this, I was afraid that they wouldn't cook very fast. And I ended up overcooking it. But they cook quite quickly. Actually, this is way better than it was the first time I did it. Oh, it's so good. So with this stuff, with a shrimp like this, it tastes just like shrimp. You know what shrimp tastes like? That's what this tastes like. This tastes like shrimp, but it's got this wonderful, like meaty texture. It's firm and chewy, but in a great, like satisfying way. And it's got little bits of like charred bit on the edges where it was just a little bit too hot, but it's big enough that it didn't like turn to leather. It's really good. These big shrimps, they're very expensive compared to small shrimps. So again, can't recommend getting them very often. But damn, I love these big shrimps. So if you when you can get them as a treat, it's my birthday, so I'm treating myself with big shrimps and swordfish and absurd nonsense in the oven. Um, well, there's that dark line from earlier. Still not sure what that is. The juices on the plate are really good too. I'm very pleased with this dinner. I'm oh, and because it's fish and fish, we have paired it with a white wine. This is um, Sauvignon Blanc, which I picked up because I only ever keep two wines on hand, one white and one red, mostly for cooking. But it's important that you always choose a cooking wine that you would also be happy to drink. I don't know if I've ever been to a sizzler. Um, I wonder how sizzler shrimp compares to this giant, awesome shrimp that wanted to be a lobster. Shrimp is one of those things that is common enough that it is frequently cooked very poorly. But if you treat it right, it's also really good. It's slightly awkward for me to eat here because I have to sort of lean down at the plate. So I'm picking at it because I don't want it. I want to enjoy it while it's still hot. But I'm also stalling a little bit because I'm waiting for this cheesecake to progress to the point where I can take it out. Um, I don't have a dessert plan at all. Like, not even slightly. I didn't think ahead. Why did I close? What the heck was that? Um, uh, I don't have a dessert planned at all for my birthday. No birthday dessert. I'll probably have a handful of chocolate chips, uh, which seems sad by comparison. Let's get this shell open. Oh, look at him in there. So I've been talking up how expensive this thing was, but a similarly sized lobster tail, I got three of these for $10. You could get one similarly sized lobster tail for $10. So it's still a way better deal than trying to get that Maine lobster. Look at how like look how nice that is. I'm also eating slowly because I'm trying to keep talking. Now I think the swordfish will keep if I don't eat the whole thing. I can eat part of it tomorrow. The shrimp certainly is at its prime right this second. We're gonna finish that guy for sure. This is all delicious. Thank you all for providing me with this delicious dinner. You did so much work to get us this far. I couldn't have done it without you. Although I probably still would have tried. Hmm. This worked out great. Um, I'm waiting on. I'm gonna tell you. God, I gotta figure out how to get a camera so that I can peek in the. Hold on one second. I would love some lobster. And thank you for being my pan. I've got a loose camera. I'm going to attempt to plug it in and hold it so that I can point it inside the oven. It's my worst camera, which is why it's not hooked up with any of my rest of my stuff here. We're gonna go dark for a sec. And we're going to is it this one? Wow, that's a terrible shot. It's this one. How's it look? There's there's the camera. We're hijacking the cable from that camera to take a peek in here. Look at that thing. Okay, back to Maine. Um, tell you, when I open the door, first of all, I get a face full of steam. Second of all, it smells like a pizza. It's obviously not the strongest um, smell because it doesn't smell like pizza when I don't open the door, but it like woofs out at me. It's cracked in perfect little circles right around the edges of each pepperoni, which I think is probably a good thing because that means I controlled the cracking rather than having it just like split in weird big diagonals through the middle. I don't think I was ever going to get away with this not cracking because I put a topping on it before I baked it, which is insane. You don't do that with cheesecake. Um, but that's the thing. That's what I keep peeking in at because I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting to see if the top will like poof and then brown because a completely plain cheesecake looked really sort of weird and anemic for a long time. And then all of a sudden, it was it didn't smooth the top when I made a plain cheesecake. I kept looking at it like, it's so ugly on top. It's not like smoothing itself out. And then, bam, all of a sudden, the top like poofed, smoothed itself off, and developed this nice sort of golden brown color. And I'm hoping that this one will do that in between the pepperonis. But I don't know if it will, so I don't want to overcook. There's plenty of water in the bath. I don't worry about that. Um, the purpose of the water bath is to, first of all, control the rate of temperature transfer into the cake. The cake is cooking at the temperature of just barely above boiling water. It also makes the inside of the oven totally filled with steam so that the top of the cake doesn't dry out. Which means every time I peek in there, I risk damaging the top of the cake because I let the steam come out and blind me. Gotta remember to eat this food while it's still warm because it is so very good. So, brief peek behind the curtain there to see my awkward in the corner camera. It's right next to the door to the outside. Gotta finish this. Come on, shrimp. The very, very tip of the shrimp is trapped inside its tail, and I'm going to use my fingers to get it out, which I should be doing live. Boom. The very, very tip of the shrimp is still in its shell here, and I got to get it out so I can eat it because I'm not wasting it. Got it. Got it. That's good. You know, I should have made up a cute end slate to go with my cute opening slate. Anyways, that shell is done. Now I could save that shell. It's been cooked, but you can still like throw it in with a bunch of other shrimp shells for a quick seafood stock. So I'm gonna end up saving this shell. Eat this broccoli. Not as I was disappointed with it. It's not as good. It's still tasty. The first time I made this broccoli, it was a broccoli and a piece of steak. When I cut the steak and I took away the steak, I was like, that's good steak. And then I took a piece of broccoli and then I just polished off the entire broccoli. because it was so good. It was mind blowing, and I have been chasing it since then, and I've never been able to recreate that miracle broccoli. I'm peeking at the cake again. Okay, here's what I'm going to do, because I can't tell if it's changing or not. And I keep peeking at it, and I can't keep peeking at it. I got to give it a wiggle. You're supposed to take a cheesecake out or turn the oven off when it's just jiggly in the middle. So we're going to give it a wiggle that you guys can't see, so take my word for it that I'm about to give it a wiggle. Okay, it's very jiggly still. It needs more time. So I'm not sure what to do about that. It's been in there for the allotted time plus plus. The recipe says depending on the oven and probably depending on the mixes, could take up to 75 minutes. I feel like we're at 75 minutes now, ish. No, don't do that. I feel like I'm probably at 75 minutes now, and it seems much jigglier than it should be. But with all the things I did to it, with all the with all the extra shit I threw at this cheesecake, I have no clue if it's going to even set at all. I really want to stay on until it comes out so I can show everybody, take pictures, and do all that fun stuff. So, what do you guys want to talk about? Napkin. This would be a time when I could switch to doing something else while I wait. Except that I gotta keep thinking at it, so. I wish I had one of those laser thermometers. I could test the temperature of the middle of the thing. Because I'm wondering if it might just be jiggly because it wasn't as firm to begin with. And that once it's cooled, it'll like come together. But I don't know. At this rate, I'm going to end up eating this whole thing. I said I was going to save half of it, but the top end over here, because that dark streak was over on this side. The top end over here is much softer and more tender than that end. That end is a little bit chewy. If I was going to make a sushi out of a swordfish, I would cut from this end, not that end. Anyway, in theory, I think cheesecake cooks from the bottom up, so the top setting should be the last thing. So it might just do it It might just do it. While we're sitting around here waiting, I'm just going to keep eating swordfish and talking to myself and hoping and praying that it, in fact, does the thing. Water. So I don't have any graphics or anything for my channel yet. I've been using the little candy corn with the skull and crossbones. That was something I found online because it's got Jupiter colors. I was thinking of doing a little planet Jupiter with a face because my name, Jovian, is something from Jupiter. But I'm not really a space guy. I'm into food and dinosaurs and magic cards and maybe playing games on Twitch. I don't know. We'll see how that works out. Um, but I like the name. So, and a little planet Jupiter is pretty recognizable, even in like a little tiny thing, because it's a circle and it's got little orange and tan stripes and it's got the little red dot in its chin. We'll see. If only I knew a professional artist that I could commission for pieces of simple little art. Too bad. I don't know any people like that. But I need to get some actual branding. If I want to carry this forward, I can't just keep using stolen clip art from Google Images. Look at the skin on the side of the swordfish that I'm not going to. Well, I'll try it. I'll taste it. Oh yeah, birds. That's true. That's another thing. Birds. Although it's going to be very hard to incorporate birds into the actual content of streaming because that would involve going outside and doxing myself. Because even where my bird feeder is, you can see the street sign on the other corner right behind my bird feeder. I want to peek at that. I want to peek at that cake, but the more I let the steam out, the longer it's going to take. So it's making little bubbling noises. You can't hear it. It's too quiet for sure. It's making little rattly noises as the water underneath the pan boils and then forces its way out the side. Photoshop has a blur filter. I don't have Photoshop. I don't have Photoshop, and I don't really have the funds to be buying Photoshop at the moment. Um, but down the line, if I end up trying to incorporate the bird feeder, I could try something like that. Anyways, it's making noises that I think are promising because it's noises that indicate that the temperature has increased. Because now it's trying to boil around the edges of the pan that's in there, which means the pan is up to the temperature of boiling. But if I ever come across a cracked copy of Photoshop, I'm not getting a cracked copy of Photoshop. Don't do that, kids. It's illegal. Um, I'll keep that in mind. I'm going to taste this piece of skin that I cut off of the. Yeah, the skin's not good. It's not inedible, but it tastes fishy. Cut the skin part off, but cook it. Cut it off after you cook it, not before you cook it. If you do a swordfish. Um. Anyways, I like the sounds that are coming out of my oven, so I'm gonna take a peek because I really want to get this thing out of here, and then we can kind of close down because I know we've gotten to the point of the stream where I've become boring because I'm just chit chatting, and also I've got some dishes I got to clean up, and I know that that's not good content. So, and now I'm all steamy. Anyways, it looked about the same. I didn't give it a chance to wiggle. I did not give it a chance to wiggle. It just steamed me up, but it looked pretty much the same. So I should do a wiggle. I should do a wiggle. Dodge the steam. Wiggle. Oh, okay. Okay. First of all, my water's down by half. Um, the cheese part is browning around the edge, and it's not as wiggly in the middle. It's still wiggly, but it's not as wiggly. So I'm tempted to say that it will survive at this point. I'm tempted. I'm tempted to say that it'll be fine if I take it out. I just really don't want to ruin all that effort I put into it. No, I'm calling it. Okay, now the official instruction for cheesecake is when it's done, turn the oven off and leave it in there until the whole thing comes to room temperature, which takes ages. And the purpose of that is you don't want to temperature shock it because that causes the top to crack. But our top is already cracked because of the pepperoni circles. So we're going to switch to the stove where I've still got my cast iron and nonstick taking up space. So I'm taking it out. We're pulling it out. We're doing it right now. It's live. We're doing it live. I'm going to show it off, take a picture, and then I'm going to put it back in there and let it come to room temperature. This is the thing. Oh, what happened? Why is my stove not working? Stove cam. Stove cam? Why are you deactivate? Activate. There it is. Stove cam froze. I don't know why that happened. Okay, I don't know why stove cam froze, but this is the thing. Here it is. Look at it. Behold, its majesty. It's like it's not liquidy on top. It doesn't stick to my fingers at all when I poke it. This is the thing. Here it is. Behold. You can see it's not browning a ton. It's not like it's burning around the edges. It's just getting this like right where it was sort of sticking to the edges and rising up a teensy bit. It was browning, which means it was coming up above boiling temperature around there. And you can see how it obviously cracked in perfect circles around every pepperoni. Um, but that's the thing. There it is. I made it. I did it. Behold. Oh, I gotta take pictures. Where's my thing? Where did I put? There you are. Put it on top of the fridge. Pictures. Oh, I'm in the way. Terrible, terrible, awkward, in the way pictures. Um, well, hot diggity. I'm going to put it back in the oven to continue cooling down. I don't want it to like freak, freak out because I took it out. But because you cool it in the oven with the door cracked open. Well, hot. I could move the pans out of the way. Hot damn. That's a thing. Well, on that high note, and with all of these dishes that I need to address, I think we're going to bring our streaming time to an end. It doesn't get any better than that because that has to sit and rest now for. It's supposed to come to room temperature and then go in the fridge for at least 4 hours or overnight. So tomorrow, probably for dinner because it's a savory thing, I will cut slices, take pictures of the finished thing, the cut slices, post them around. You'll all get to see the finished product, but take pleasure that you saw the thing come out. This is a surprising success. It worked. I'm very pleased with it. Um, yeah, and the surf and surf was a smashing success as well. I'm very pleased with that. There is a piece of fish there left. I'm gonna end up saving that because I'm quite full. That was a very large piece of fish steak. Um, as always, I have not prepared an end card. I prepared a I prepared an opening card today. Um, so I guess I can reprise my opening card, but turn it upside down. Um, what? Not that one. This one. Uh, apparently, I've got a diagonal picture of my back door now because that camera's not even plugged in anymore. It's just picking. That's an old image. I need a proper end card so I can log out for it. Oh my god, I've got those emotes. I can do that. Ugh, I hate scrolling through emails. Fish, fish, fish. Um. Anyways, we are calling it there. Thank you all for showing up. I will get actual proper like opening cards and end cards and maybe a bot. But hot damn, thanks for the birthday wishes. It's been a weird birthday because we're still in the middle of all the nonsense, but but yes, thanks for the birthday wishes. The apron worked great. I don't have oil splatters all over myself. Um, Everything seems like it's a success. Yes, Buttbot wished me a happy butt day earlier. Thank you. As always, I don't have an actual end card, so once I disconnect, everything will just freeze. So thank you so much for showing up, and good night.